It is Econo Chat Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman, and I am your hostess, Elsa B. Tivignani. A warm welcome to all our listeners and also to Mr. Daniel Steinman. Today we will be talking about the first quarter of 2023, comparing the previous years, but also Mr. Daniel Steinman. There is a confusion, I must say, between all these quarters and all these names that we do not understand. Where do we put all these quarters? So can you please, before we get into details, can you please elaborate to our listeners when we hear first quarter, what is it all about? In economic terms.
Can I first say hello, Elsa B?
Oh, hello, Mr. Daniel Steinman.
Hello to all the listeners. There is a huge confusion when you start talking about quarterly performance. Not in the sense how it is measured, but in the sense when it is measured.
Okay.
And this becomes very important. So the obvious thing is what we call a calendar quarter. So that's a calendar year, and it runs from January to December. And so the first quarter in a calendar quarter is January, February, March, the one that we've just concluded about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Then you have fiscal quarters. Now, fiscal refers to the income of the government. And the government doesn't run January to December. The government runs April to March. So we are now in the beginning of the first quarter of the government, the first fiscal quarter. So what is the fourth calendar quarter? January, February, March is the first calendar quarter. January, February, March is actually the fourth fiscal quarter.
Okay.
Can you see that there is lank room for confusion?
I see.
And that often people talk about quarterly performance and they don't realize that we're not talking about the same quarter here. And then you get a third one. And this is a financial quarter. And this applies to most companies. And it usually starts on the 1st of March. That is if their financial year end is on the 28th of February. So can you also see that it is out of sync with about 1 month with a fiscal quarter? So financial quarters starting on 1st of March, fiscal quarters starting on 1st of April. But here's the catch. You won't believe it, there's a fourth one.
Okay.
And this is for companies where the 30th of June is the end of the financial year. So their first quarter actually starts on the 1st of July. Now,
which most companies use in Namibia?
The bigger companies. The smaller companies sort of by... I wouldn't say that you're forced by NAMRA, by the receiver of revenue, but the conventional cycle for the receiver of revenue is from the 1st of March to the 28th of February. So you can imagine if there are 4 different ways to define exactly which quarter we're talking about, it can lead to a lot of confusion, and it actually does. So if you always need to make sure that when you can see immediately fiscal quarter, calendar quarter, the calendar first quarter is actually the government's last quarter. You know, and the government's first quarter is already the second calendar quarter. So one need to make exactly sure how these quarters are running and from which months are included and which months are not. Otherwise, the data that you use is incomparable. I mean, it will be useless to compare April, May, June government figures to January, February, March private sector figures, you know, because they're not the same. So if you grasp this basic fact that identifying the correct quarter is the first step in actually measuring the performance of that quarter, then you've come a long way.
Yeah.
Because I know of many young people, they finish at university and they work for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and then they only realize when they start looking at the figures and they say, but these figures don't make sense. And then they try and figure out, why don't they make sense? And then some old topic comes along and he says, which quarter are you talking about exactly? You know? And then they realize,
The light.
We're not talking about the same quarter
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Because of this difference in definitions.
And on that note, let's go for a short break. And when we return, we will then go deeper into the first quarter.
The actual performance.
The actual performance of the first quarter 2023.